Hello, welcome to Legal Action. My name is David Siegel. Thank you for joining us this evening. Today we're going to be talking about traffic and traffic violations and all that entails. And I have once again with me my co-host Jesse Barrientes. Jesse, how are you, sir?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Pretty good. You have a little bit of understanding over the years on traffic-related matters, do you not?
I do.
Either from the legal standpoint or from being a person who has been
from a legal standpoint,
cited
definitely.
for a traffic violation, correct?
I can't remember the last time. I think probably it's been years.
But you have been cited?
Yes.
Okay. There's nothing more uncomfortable than driving down the expressway or Main Street, wherever you are, and the lights come up. From behind you, half the time it's not you. You move out of the way, you let them drive through, and you breathe a big sigh of relief. The other half of the time, it's you moving over to the right, is it not?
Yeah, it is, but even short of that, when you see the squad car moving up, all of a sudden you didn't see anything, and there he is, even if the lights aren't on, that kind of gives your heart generally a little jump.
Right. But then you have a little bit of a waiting period to see whether or not you're going to be, in fact, pulled over. But when the lights are on and you're pulled over, the very first thing you're thinking is what? Oh my goodness, I can't afford this. I gotta, I'm gonna get a ticket. Or what was the violation?
Yeah,
you have to be thinking,
what did I do?
The most obvious one is a speeder.
That's true. I was gonna say most people, though. I mean, you know what you did.
But it could be a red light. It could be an improper lane usage.
Sure.
It could be a DUI. It could be a combination of all those.
Could be improper lane. Exactly.
With a seatbelt violation on there, whether or not you had it on or not, you're probably going to get one. You're going to see one of those, maybe.
Could be a registration violation. Could be anything like that.
Plates.
Yep. Exactly.
A light out.
Yeah.
Okay. So what do you do in this case? You pull over.
Well, the important thing to do, obviously, is to pull over and at the very first safest opportunity. Because depending upon where you get stopped, and generally the police officers are trained to make their stop at the appropriate time. But what you want to do is to pull over at a safe place. Because if you're on the expressway, you want to be on the shoulder. You want to pull over where it's going to be safe. Or if you're on the street, maybe pull off to the side onto a side street or into a parking lot or something else. And I'm assuming here we're just talking about general traffic violation here.
A speeder. This will be our example for these purposes. It's a speeder. So you're going to sit and wait. You're not going to get out of the car and go approach the officer.
No, they tell you in fact. No, they want, and the reason for that. And I would, after I pulled over, I would begin to get my license and my insurance card out ready, just so that when he comes, because that's what he's going to ask for, that you have it prepared. A lot of times. The reason they don't want you to get out of the car is for the officer's safety, because he doesn't know who he's stopping. He doesn't know what your intentions are, what you've done. Maybe you just did a traffic violation, but maybe you've just robbed a bank. Maybe you have drugs in the car. Maybe you're on drugs. Who knows? And so it's for the officer's safety, really.
Right. And the officer, before he approaches your vehicle, is going to do a search of those plates, correct?
Yeah, more than likely, he's going to call the plates in and just kind of find out, get a little information and to who it's registered to and what the deal is with respect to that. And if it's registered to you and you have a suspended license, then your troubles are going to be worse.
Right. And depending on the offense, you might have backup arrive as well.
That's correct.
For example, if there's a warrant for the owner of those plates. But let's get to a situation where it's just a speeder. And he approaches, he or she approaches the vehicle. Everything checks out fine, but you are issued a citation. Not a warning, but an actual citation. You weren't able to talk yourself out of it, which is hard to believe in your case. It's the way you can talk.
Well,
let's say you're going about 105. Okay, so you're getting a ticket.
Well,
what happens next?
Well, and again, just to back up a little bit, I think it's extremely important, all right, to be courteous, to be respectful to the police officer, to answer his questions. Again, we're assuming a speeder here, okay? And you want to have that respect for that person, no matter how he or she speaks to you, even if they're rude to you, You don't want to cop an attitude with them.
Right. Because that can come back and haunt you when you actually appear before the court.
That can come back and haunt you. Then that can come back and haunt you, even during the process.
Yeah, that's known as the jerk factor. We'll get to that later in the process.
Okay.
Right now, you're issued a cite no matter what you said. You're getting cited. You needed to be cited, and the officer did his job. And you were handed a slip or several slips. What's your next course of action?
Well, next course of action is obviously then you pull away safely from wherever you're at and go up on your business. But the very next thing that you should do, depending upon each thing is kind of subjective. It depends upon the particular individual. If you have an individual who's had several speeders, who's had more than 2 or 3 speeders in a 12-month period, all right, then you're in jeopardy of losing your license. If you're underage or 21 and you've had a couple within that period of time, you're going to be in jeopardy. So the first thing that you should do is speak to an attorney, somebody who's familiar with the traffic laws and familiar with the particular jurisdiction in which you receive those citations.
Several counties, though, are moving towards a scenario where they have an election on the form as to whether you want to appear in court and fight the case or possibly attend a traffic school and avoid having to go to court, pay a small fine, and basically get a supervisory order where if you don't have any more traffic violations for an extended period of time, right, it does not hit your public record on traffic violations. So you have an election right off the bat. Do you want to go to court? Well, do you want to go to school?
Let me ask you this: do you like missing time from work? I know that you don't.
No,
right? And neither do most folks.
Right? I also don't like going to school at this late stage.
Well, that's true too. However, if you do send the ticket in, again, if you don't have anything in your past, in your history, chances are you will get what they call supervision. And essentially, it's a court disposition. What supervision essentially is that as long as you complete that term of supervision, whether it's 2 or 3 months successfully, and you don't receive any other violations, then it's just as if it didn't occur. It's not a conviction. It doesn't get reported and doesn't get used against you for purposes of insurance, and insurance rates can go up as a result of that. However, they still maintain, for informational purposes, the fact that you've got a supervision. So if you come in next month and into court, they're gonna be able to see on your record how many supervisions.
Yeah. That record is known as a driver's abstract.
That's correct. At the Secretary of State, I think it's $5 or $10 that you can secure from them.
I remember it was $2.
Yeah, times have changed, Dave, a little bit.
Have.
Yeah.
So that the abstract is always going to have a record of supervisions, convictions, and whatnot, correct?
Yeah, well, and the prosecutor's office will have a sheet that has that information on there as well.
Okay.
So
what are some of the fines that may be associated with a supervisory order on a minor traffic violation?
Yeah, generally about $75 for a minor speeding infraction. I mean, it can go up from there depending upon what you do. And it's important for people to know too that if you are traveling more than 40 miles an hour over the speed limit, it's a Class A misdemeanor, which is punishable by up to 364 days in jail and a $2,500 fine, or both. It's similar to a DUI in that respect.
You just stated the maximum penalty, though.
The maximum penalty.
Typically, though, on a Class A misdemeanor, you won't be looking at anywhere near that, correct?
Well, typically you won't. However, I don't want to be too quick to say that, but that is
on a first violation.
On a first violation, that is what you can be sentenced to. And I don't want our folks at home to think, oh, okay, well, it doesn't matter, we can just brush it off because they told us on TV that's not going to happen. No, the judge can sentence you up to that. It's unlikely that that'll happen, but it's not a cinch. It's not a sure thing.
And that's when a traffic violation accelerates into a criminal violation when we start talking about a Class A misdemeanor.
Right.
Criminal.
When you go that right, the traffic violations essentially are petty offenses.
Okay. Let's say you don't want to go to school, and you want to set a court date, and you want to have your say and roll the dice basically with the judge as to whether or not you're going to be sent to school anyway, or whether you're going to get a conviction, or whether you're going to get a supervisory order. What should you be prepared to do on that day, aside from show up on time?
Show up with your lawyer.
With a lawyer?
With a lawyer. That's what
I mean. For a traffic violation?
Well, for a traffic violation, because, your chances of getting a more favorable disposition are better because you have a lawyer. Because the court realized also that you have obviously incurred some expenses. You are represented. The attorney can explain all the ramifications of everything that you're doing. And, depending, your attorney can speak with the prosecutor. And again, as long as your record, your past record is good and there's nothing on it, then generally he can negotiate a better deal than you can. If you have a prosecutor that's up there and he's talking to a lot of people that are not there with their attorneys, and a lot of times, unfortunately, they're not very respectful, and they really don't know how to ask and to negotiate for those kinds of things.
Those represented by attorneys are also handled in an expeditious manner in the courtroom.
They are. They're handled generally first, and the reason is because many of the attorneys, and they have different branches. If you take your in DuPage, there's Wheaton Field Court, there's the Glendale Heights Field Court, Downers Grove Field Court, and a lot of times attorneys have other matters up at the main courthouse. So they want to move them in and move them out because they have to be in court in other places as well. So that's the reason for that. It's not that they're special, it's just that the nature of the job kind of demands that they're able to get through those things.
Okay, so the attorney that you hire will actually try and speak with the prosecutor, whether it be for the village, for the county, for the state, or the local municipality, prior to the judge arriving on the bench? In other words, try and cut a deal or work out a resolution prior to the judge arriving?
Ahead of time, that's correct. That's essentially correct. A lot of times the judge maybe won't come out, or sometimes even after they've proceeded a little bit, they'll take a break and give the prosecutor a chance to speak to other people. But generally, yeah, it's before court starts. So, it's important to be there in a timely manner, even a little bit early, to be dressed appropriately. I know it's just traffic court, but so many times I see people dressed, I think, rather inappropriately. You're going to court, all right? It's an authoritative place. Have a little respect, not only for the system, not only for the judge, but for yourself as well.
Yeah. So no tank tops, no shorts, no hats.
I wouldn't, and hats, if you put your hat on, they'll tell you to take it off. But yeah, that's, it might be a hot day, but you know what? Those are the kind of subconscious or subliminal things that will make things go a little better for you. That's not to say that somebody dressed in a tank top is going to get a worse deal than somebody dressed in a suit. It's just something that's more of a positive for you.
What type of judges hear the traffic cases?
There's a variety of judges, and sometimes they switch after so long. It really depends on the kind of case and the location.
It just seems awfully routine.
It is routine, and how
many novel issues come up before the judge in a traffic case where it actually has to go to a hearing with research and briefs and things like that? I just don't see that happening.
Probably not a whole lot of novel ideas.
I mean, how much preparation is there on the part of the judge to arrive that day and handle traffic matters?
Oh, but understand, the judge is somebody who's generally been a practicing attorney for a number of years, and depending, has been on the bench for several years too, and has that experience. And I'm quite sure that they have other training and seminars in judges school and that kind of thing to get them prepared for those kind of things. But it's really not all that novel. What are novel are the facts.
Let's move this into more of a serious traffic situation where an attorney is mandatory, that being a DUI case.
Well, we can do that. Let's do that in a sec. I would like to just to dwell a little bit on our speeder, because most people out there are getting these these petty offense kind of cases, and so you not only have the opportunity to plead, you have the opportunity to do a trial. You can also ask for a jury trial. And if you do that in one of the field courts, it gets transferred to the main courthouse in order to
on a different date.
On a different date, and it will be set for jury trial on that date. Now, you might think, okay, well, it's a speeder. The guy got me on the radar. Well, you know what? Maybe not. Maybe he got you on the radar. Maybe he paced you. Paced means, hey, I'm driving alongside of you, and so he's able to calibrate with his speedometer. You're going 80 miles an hour in a 60-mile-an-hour, on the express, or 55, or going 40 in a 35 or whatever. And so there's different ways. And so the state is required to prove their case. Now,
in that case, the officer would testify as to the speed he or she was driving,
The officer
and the
would
fact that he was
testify.
following you at the exact same speed. So.
Exactly, and if they used radar, but there are other considerations like the fact that the radar machine was tested either before or after, that it's accurate. There are several other kind of things when you get into the specific case. So I mean, are you going to win? Who knows? If I knew that, I'd be able to predict all kinds of things.
In general, though, do you find the court sympathetic on somebody taking a traffic matter to a jury trial and trying to fight it?
Well, everybody has that right. However, you're wasting a lot of time and resources for a traffic case. Now, there may be a legitimate reason. It may be that, hey, guess what? If we don't try this, if you can't get a deal that's going to be supervision or something that's not going to be a conviction that the Secretary of State's going to get a hold of, and you're going to lose your license as a result of conviction,
right.
Okay, then you don't really have much of a choice.
You might have prior violations, and you have to roll the dice on that one.
And you have to, right? And then your only choice really then is to do a trial, because then if you win, hey, great, then your license is intact. If you lose, you're not going to do any worse than you would have if you pled, because you still would have got the conviction. Okay. But some judges will impose what they call a trial tax. Now, I really haven't seen it out here so much, but there are other places that do that.
It is threatened, though.
It is threatened, and sometimes what they'll say is, and I've heard judges say that, I won't say whom, but what they'll say is, hey, listen, I'll give you, if your record's good, we'll give you supervision. However, if you go to trial and you lose, you're not going to get supervision. Now,
they often say that, but yet we've both seen where the person actually took it to a bench trial that day. They were found guilty, and they still got the same supervisory order.
Right. They still
that the people who pled guilty got. So it's almost like, is it not a scare tactic to kind of clean the slate of the activity in front of the bench that afternoon?
It depends on the judge. Understand, you can have 150, it just depends upon the day, you could have so many people in that courtroom for those traffic offenses, and the judges really try to move them out and to dispose of each and every one of those cases. I mean, now this is on a daily basis. So, it's important for them to be expeditious, to be able to just kind of move that out, to make things kind of run along, to prevent the clog in the docket from happening.
Well, in our example where the individual hired an attorney to assist him in this kind of case, the likelihood that it's actually going to go to a trial is very slim, because the state's attorney or the prosecutor is going to try and strike a deal with counsel, will he not?
Yes, that's cool. That's exactly right. And it is very slim, except in the cases that I mentioned, where it is, I had a case just recently that was exactly that. And we weren't able to get the disposition we wanted to, and the license was in peril, and so we transferred it to the main courthouse for jury trial. And so that's, but that's really the exception, all right? The rule is, in most things are pled, things are resolved, things are taken care of that way.
Let's move towards the more serious driving offense, and the more common serious driving offense, and that being driving under the influence, which just does not mean alcohol exclusively. It could mean another foreign substance or legal substance as well, such as marijuana or cocaine. Or
sure, it could even be prescription medication. Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah.
What's involved, basically, on a DUI case, in a nutshell?
You mean from the stop?
From the standpoint of what's at stake as far as the defendant in that case, as to what he or she may be facing on a first DUI.
On a first DUI, if we're talking about it, the first DUI, and there are no injuries, no accident, that kind of stuff. And I know you're familiar with that too. I think we've done a show. We had an officer. Actually, I think we've done a couple shows.
Yeah, we've had Officer Cawthor,
yes,
from Itasca Police Department, in on the show. But it's been a while, so if you can refresh on a DUI.
Sure. What's involved for the individual on a first time? What you can expect. Well, first, having an attorney is a must. In fact, they're going to tell you when you go up there. I mean, you don't have to have an attorney. They're going to highly, highly, highly recommend that you do, because any time that your liberty is in peril, you're required to get, and you should, to get the proper legal counsel. Now, most likely, are you going to go to jail on a first DUI? Probably not.
No.
Can you?
Yes.
Absolutely. And I know there are some cases where we're just kind of on a fluke, on a quirk. The judge had a bad day and sent a lot of people to revoke their bond. But chances are it's not going to happen. but you're going to spend a lot of money. You're going to spend money on your attorney. You're going to spend money if you do negotiate a deal and you are eligible for supervision and you do get supervision. You're going to spend money on the fine and on the tech fees, and on the lab fees, and on the costs, court costs, and so on. You're going to lose time from work. You're going to have to get an evaluation, an alcohol and drug evaluation. That's going to cost you some time. It's going to cost you some money. You're going to have follow-up treatment that, as a result of the recommendation from that evaluation, that's going to be part of your sentence.
Are those rehabilitative classes to educate a person on the effects of driving under the influence?
Well, I mean, there's one. There's a victim impact panel, which is certainly that's the idea. But there's others, which is in form of treatment in terms of drinking. Again, it all depends on the circumstances. It all depends on the amount that you blew. Let's take a case where somebody did blow, I don't know, 0.1, and 0.08 is a legal limit. So that's not so bad. It depends on the circumstances of the evaluation, how they're going to classify you. You know, what is your pattern? That's what they're going to get into. What are your patterns of drinking? What were your patterns of drinking before?
You may be an occasional drinker. You may be a social drinker. You may be a regular drinker.
You may be an alcoholic. Yeah,
right.
I mean, you know, exactly. And that's how, depending upon what you tell them and upon how that goes, that's what they're going to classify you. That's going to determine the amount of treatment that they're going to recommend for you. And then there's aftercare and the treatment follow-up that you need to do. And that's going to all be part of your sentence. So you're going to spend, again, you're going to spend time.
This seems kind of overwhelming on a first-time DUI case for this kind of involvement. It just seems overwhelming, is it not?
Well, but you know what? The main idea here, an issue, is that you shouldn't be drinking and driving. I mean, just period. That's it. Because guess what? Although, yeah, you got caught, all right, and you're going through all this stuff, what happens, all right, if you hit somebody? What happens if you kill somebody? What happens if you injure somebody? It's not just you that, you know, worried about. We're worried about the other people. And if you're a danger to other drivers that are out there. And the news is full of all kinds of stories about those kinds of things where, hey, you know, lives are shattered, lives are ended, lives are changed forever because somebody decided to drink and drive. You know what you're better off to do? Take the $100 cab ride home.
Right.
Spend the night at the hotel. All right. It's going to be infinitely cheaper, and your life is going to be less complicated than go, you know, taking a chance and driving.
The penalty factor, the rigors, it seems to be quite a deterrent, but yet we've seen clients with second, third, fourth DUI cases.
And sometimes young, and you know, obviously there's a problem.
Right.
Okay, I know of a case where an individual got a DUI 1 month and he got a second one, you know, just a month after. You know, I mean, it could be.
Were the two cases consolidated?
They were, in fact.
However, the court obviously was well aware of both cases.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And so the problem that you deal with it is, you know, back to your first time, consequences that you're going to have too, right? You're familiar with the suspension, Dave, the statutory summary suspension. What do you think? What's the deal behind that? How many days if you blow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your license is.
I believe it's on the 46th day.
That's correct.
The suspension kicks in for 90 days.
That's right. And if you're eligible for a judicial driving permit?
After the stiff 30.
That's right. So that means what?
30 days of no driving.
30 days of no driving. So guess what? All right, just the 30 days. I mean, a lot of people out there think that, hey, guess what? No problem. 30 days.
I could rough it for 30 days without a problem.
You know, you don't realize what you have until you lost it. Okay, driving is a privilege, and hey, especially if you live in the suburbs, you know, the bus just isn't going to do it. Okay, so you really need to be mobile. You really need it, and you'll see how, you know, just the extraordinary consequences from that one.
You actually may be suspended for the full 90 days if you cannot receive a judicial driving permit for the remaining 60. So the suspension is actually 90, is it not?
Yes, on a blow, if you did blow.
Okay. The 30 days for sure no driving, and then the next 60 possibly to and from work with limitations.
Right. It depends upon your employment, or it could be for school. It could be for treatment purposes. So there's a whole bunch of other things.
This is where traffic morphs from being something relatively simple from a one day in court to something very, very serious, especially if there's injuries involved.
Oh yeah, and then it just gets worse from there. I mean, again, it's a Class A. We were talking earlier about the speeding, 40 miles over. The DUI is the first DUI is Class A misdemeanor. Again, punishable by 364 days and $25 fine.
And if there's severe injuries, it could be escalated to a felony DUI, even on a first time.
Absolutely, absolutely can. If you kill somebody, then guess what? Your life is going to be over. You are going to do some time. You are going to go to jail. People should take that seriously.
What type of sentence can someone expect on that?
If you kill somebody?
What are the ranges for DUI in general?
For DUI, the ranges of sentence could be, again, you could get supervision for a year, depending upon your age and the requirements, because sometimes they require you to do. Your level of counseling might take more than a year to complete. You might have community service, which is going to, depending upon how much you get, is going to take a long time to complete. You might get 30 hours, you might get 30 days. I mean, and that's a long stretch of time that you have to do. So it could be a year, could be 2 years. Fine could, be anywhere $1,000, $1,700 plus the court costs and everything else, plus your attorney's fees, not to mention that.
Find and make sure that attorney is qualified. Check some references. Meet with them. Ask questions.
Absolutely.
Listen to the responses.
Be informed. Yeah, you don't want to ask Uncle Vinny, who does real estate and only real estate, because you're trying to save some money. It's your life. But just kind of basic general rules. You know what? Make sure that your car is operating in good condition, that your lights are working, right? That your registration is up to date. Sometimes you just don't pay attention, and but you forget about it. You'll get the notice in the mail, but just make sure everything is up to date, because chances are, if you get stopped for that traffic violation and everything else, your insurance card is good, everything is in order, the officer may give you a pass. He may just give you a warning.
Sure.
So, and especially if you're respectful.
What about having an understanding of when you are impaired, in terms of how many alcoholic beverages you've consumed over what duration of time? To have a little bit of an education in that area would certainly be helpful, would it not?
That's absolutely important. I mean, a good rule of thumb is if you drink anything, don't drive. I mean,
right.
You can't get any better than that. I mean, is that practical? Probably not.
Yeah, there aren't exactly buses going to the clubs and
the
taverns, so people are drinking and driving. It's just a question of whether or not they're impaired, either under the statute or otherwise.
Right. I mean, you don't have to blow at the statutory level of .08. I mean, you could be impaired. It could be a level under that. But for whatever amount that you drank impairs your ability to operate that motor vehicle, and it endangers others. And that's the main thing.
Even one drink would certainly do that to a certain extent.
Yeah.
Impair your ability to some certain level, correct?
Yeah, I think that certainly it would, especially depending on the drink, depending upon the size, depending upon whether or not you've had anything to eat. All those factors are important.
Right. Christmas time with the Christmas parties, there's always those cases where people indulge in martinis, not realizing how strong alcoholic-wise those drinks are. It's not the same as having a beer. And we see a higher amount of DUIs right around that holiday season. Is that
you do? People generally do drink more during the holidays, but truth be told, I think that there's people, a lot of people out there who have been drinking and driving, and you know what? You just haven't gotten caught.
Right.
Okay, you're going to get caught. Your number is going to get up, and again, it's not even about that. It's just it's just about general safety. You don't want to injure anybody else. You don't want to end somebody's life.
That's solid advice from Jesse Barrientos. And as you can see, traffic can be anything from simple to very, very complicated. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on Legal Action.